RuPaul's Drag Race alum and trans activist, Peppermint. Yay!
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, darling, I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, you look gorgeous. You got your Beyonce fan flowing.
Oh,
And
I don't know what you mean.
She just woke up like this, folks, okay? Listen, obviously, we knew that Pride was going to look a lot different this year because of the coronavirus. And now it's really, the focus is shifting a little bit in light of all these protests following George Floyd's death. I mean, talk to me about, the Pride celebrations that you're involved in and how you guys are honoring the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, I've done a lot. This in the past, but also this in the past couple of weeks with a lot of different organizations that are really pulling through: the ACLU, ACT UP, the legendary AIDS activism group. And I'm really happy to announce that I'm partnering with Bob the Drag Queen and myself are partnering with several sponsors and donors and NYC Pride and GLAAD to celebrate Black queer excellence. It's called the Black Queer Town Hall, and it's going to be on June 19th, June 20th, and June 21st. It'll be streaming on YouTube. This is the announcement. The official announcement is going to be on blackqueertownhall.org, excuse me. And so people can check that out. So we really just wanted to pull together all different voices, Black queer voices, and show people that Black lives matter and Black queer lives and voices need to be heard and supported in this time.
I was going to say, how important is it for you to have those conversations, especially right now? Because I feel like it's almost as tragic as these events in the last couple of weeks have been, it's almost a divine order that it's happening within Pride Month, because how important is it for you to make sure that you're also shining a light on the Black queer and Black trans communities right now?
I don't know if it's kismet or it feels like the perfect set of dominoes, or a very lined up set of dominoes. I won't say perfect, but like you mentioned, the COVID-19 wreaked havoc on not only our country, but the planet, everyone at the same time. And there was a moment at which people were saying, oh, Pride is canceled. Of course, many of the cities were canceling their in-person events, their Pride parades and things. And so for a minute, we were all trying to figure out what to do. And it wasn't until we had the opportunity to really open up a really nuanced and earnest discussion about police brutality centered around George Floyd's murder that we were able to kind of expand that conversation and realize it's not just about one cop and one tragic murder. It's also about a system of racism and oppression that exists not only in America, but in the whole country. I mean, in the whole world. Right. And so that really started allowing people the opportunity in all industries, in all places, to kind of self-evaluate what is it that we're doing to contribute to this in any way, and how do we fit into this story. It was really interesting in the United States to see NASCAR, which has a really big Southern contingent, a really big kind of conservative, Republican, probably white viewership, making a statement on Black Lives Matter. It's really interesting to see even some police organizations are starting to take a second look at how they do things. There's a whole lot to talk about. That's a different discussion. Right. And so people in different organizations, Broadway, the film and television industry, so many industries are starting to self-evaluate and see how they've been contributing to racism, as generic as it sounds. And so that's the perfect opportunity for us to look at the LGBTQ community and the Pride festivities and see who is it that we've been celebrating historically, and is there a way for us to kind of focus on more people that have always existed within the queer community, but this year, let's change the conversation a bit. And so I think a lot of Pride organizations are starting to do that. The ones who aren't, we're watching. And and it also gives an opportunity for us to kind of take the reins and show people a new side of Pride.
It's amazing. Pride is obviously taking on an extra special meaning, in a lot of ways. And, obviously, like you mentioned, this systemic racism and these issues have existed long before George Floyd's death. But this does feel like a turning point. Are you hopeful that right now in this cultural moment that this could actually affect some real change moving forward?
I definitely believe that what we've seen so far is more. I mean, I'm not as old as I may not look.
Well, you look snatched and you know it.
But I do think that this is probably one of the most, it's the most monumental change that I've ever seen. It's really, it seems to be the wave has rippled and rippled and gone far out, further than I thought that it would. Even right after George Floyd's murder, Ahmaud Arbery's murder, still there's so many people that we still have yet to recognize. But I definitely think that this conversation is being had in places that it hasn't been had. I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that real systemic change takes so long to really fix and address. It's not a weekend of tweeting. It's not a post on Instagram. I mean, look, you cannot, if we could, you know, send a vote away or send a post to get rid of racism, it would have been gotten rid of a long time ago. And so we really have to do the work. But I am hopeful that we are on a path that will lead us to a destination that we can't turn back from.
I think we're already seeing that effect in Hollywood for sure. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of companies, a lot of studios, a lot of shows that are stepping up and really exposing the past mistakes they've made when it comes to, you know, amplifying Black voices and Black creatives. And obviously representation has been a hot topic in this industry for a really long time. And you yourself, obviously a huge trailblazer in many ways, but especially for the trans community. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of contestants out of Drag Race, who, or a few I should say, that have come out as transgender, but at the time you were the only out transgender activist and person like on that show. Do you feel like, and obviously Ru and also Drag Race has been criticized in the past for, you know, their representation as far as the trans community goes. Do you feel like this will shift that a little bit and we'll start seeing more diversity on that show in particular?
I do want to say that, just highlight that I'm not the first person to come out as trans in relationship to the show, but I was out and cast on the show as an out trans woman, which is different than I believe the other girls' experiences have been. And I really do think that the best story is one that changes and evolves and is more inclusive. I think that ultimately the shows, the productions, the projects that will be lasting and the most effective and the most legendary are going to be the ones that are constantly striving to be better, to do better, and to be more inclusive and diverse every single time without having to be asked to do it.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking, what is your relationship with Ru now? What does that look like? And also with the show?
Well, I mean, Ru's here right now. Hey, girl.
Oh, that's where he's been hiding.
You know, I hello, yeah, let's take a little step. I don't necessarily have a personal relationship with Ru. I highly respect RuPaul, and I think that the show, Ru herself and the show Drag Race have been are one of a kind. And you know, and so there's been lots of opportunities for us to have conversations in general. And I think that it's important that everyone is constantly contributing to that conversation. There are some people that I think we are waiting to hear from. And I'm hopeful that whenever they do speak out, they will deliver messages that will help this movement along. And I know that there's people out there fighting. I know that there's people that have lost their lives over this conversation, this battle, this fight. Some people call it a war. I think it is just the effort to continue a conversation and contribute to that conversation. And I don't want anyone to feel like their voice doesn't matter in this conversation. And I also want everyone to know that their voices are essential in this conversation. So we're waiting.
So what do you say to those fans who are waiting and who have called out Ru for being relatively silent about Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on right now? What do you say to them?
I think we have to really allow people, people, in America, it's a free country, and people as adults can do, you know, what they want. Some people feel like they want to speak out on this and some people aren't. And, you know, I think it's luckily for, you know, you can do this with, you can look at this and kind of apply this to any and every single civil rights struggle that's ever existed and ever will. There's always going to be someone involved in the group, in the oppressed marginalized group or community that isn't the most vocal, that isn't the most active. And luckily for them, when I'm marching for Black lives, I'm marching for every single Black person, even those
Mm.
that aren't speaking out. And I guess you're going to benefit from that. And, you know, enjoy.